I'm about to show you is a study in what a club racer can do when they haven't got any money, to use what they've got and not spend any money and to make it work. I'm getting ready to disassemble this section here, and I need to remove this breather line out of the puke tank. This is the dry sump tank here, so if things go nuts inside there, you got an overflow to a catch tank. And it's this overflow that I want to talk about. I'm going to be using the cheap wrenches to disassemble. When we get back into plumbing this thing, you'll see the Phoenix wrenches, which are beautiful. This hose is spectacular in its innovation. Okay, so it looks like we got an Earls. Pretty sure that's Earls or Aeroquip or something like that. I don't know. One of those inferior brands. Anyway, and it's a push-on hose, or it should be, sort of, but it has a billet clamp on it. Oh yeah, it's an Earls billet clamp. This might be a Aeroquip hose end with an Earls billet clamp on it, using double braided. No, that's not double braided. That's single braided nylon rubber hose. Oh, this is a mess. This is a crime against nature. I hate these things to start with. We make them, we sell them, and occasionally there's situations where you have to use them, but to me that's a crime against nature. But anyway, you talk about cobbling something together. Now, in a low pressure application, in a dry sump, puke line, I guess this is okay, but man, is that ugly. I want to make sure you understand I'm going to handle this properly. So we're going to take this piece that just came off as this breather line, and I'm going to store it over here. Right there. That ought to do it. Yeah, I want to be clear about some of the things I've said about Club Racer and the preparation of this car. I'm not making fun of it. I'm not impugning it. I'm praising it. You know, as a club racer, you have certain, I guess, commonalities with people around the world who want to go racing and haven't got the money or the resources. The people of Australia, for instance, or New Zealand, are well known for their improv, their ability to make do with what they've got because they're cut off from the rest of the world and the supplies they need because they're an island. Well, as a club racer, my island has always been money and its limitations. So you have to do what you have to do in order to get the car back to the track. There are a lot of things that fall under the category of what I used to call nice but not necessary. And so whatever it takes to make things work, well, that's what you do as a club racer. And I guess that's my history. You know, in 1990, I was given the St. Louis SCCA Regions Award for Club Racer of the Year. And that goes to the driver who campaigns and maintains his own car. And that sounds quaint, and it sounds like something that, you know, kind of a minor award. But in my mind, the club racer takes on all responsibilities. You know, if you're a professional driver and your crew lets you down because of a mechanical, well, I guess you can point at them. But when you prepare the car and you build the motor and you deliver it to the track and you drive it, well, you're responsible for everything. And, you know, I like that. I think that is the essence of club racing. And this car was prepared by a darn good club racer. I think he ran it hard. I think he loved it much. And I think he did everything he could to present it in the best condition possible. Uh, Investing in knowledge and time reading about shock absorbers and setup and everything else. If you look through his notebook, the man was careful. So I give him a lot of credit. Anyway, back to what we're doing here. I'm disassembling the rear suspension. And once again, we're back into the genius and intricacies of the Swift chassis. And you see that I've got a center punch, a Craftsman center punch stuck in the middle of that rocker arm. And there's a hole and this is how you pin the post that goes between the two bolts that I'm undoing here. and keep it from rotating while you unscrew the bolts. And what an ingenious way! It's very simple. It's intuitive. I looked at it and said, how do you get this undone? And oh, what's this hole here for? And I dropped that pin in there, and it was so easy to take this thing apart. Never disassembled a Swift. I've never touched one. I've never been closer than 5 or 6 feet of one of these things, and yet it's easy enough to disassemble. And once again, everything that I took off, I think it was ready to go back on. So anyway, I'm just trying to trim things down and carefully disassemble and catalog the parts. I'm keeping a running list of what comes off and in what order, and uh, and that'll help with the reassembly time. So by now you might have guessed that I'm not really an expert on Swifts, not by a darn sight. Um, what I am when it comes to David Bruns and his the theme of his cars is an admirer. And when the Swift came out, you couldn't miss the fact that what he was after was the smallest amount of frontal area possible. So everything was tucked in. And this here you see the shocks inboard inside that special casting, which does so many different jobs. It's a dry sump, it's a bell housing, it's a stress member of the car. There's suspension pickup points off the thing, and the coilover shock units are inside there. Everything he could do to make things physically smaller, he did it. And if you look at the rest of his cars, um, if you take almost, I don't care what the category is, through Formula Ford, Formula Continental, Atlantic, and of course to the final IndyCar, um, if you take his Swift IndyCar and set it next to a contemporary like a Renard, it looks physically smaller. It's just plain more compact. I happen to have a friend of mine old friend of mine, goes back to my club racing days, who went on to be an aerospace engineer, and he left St. Louis and went to California and actually worked for Swift. And he's a composite engineer, and he designed the center section of the Swift IndyCar. And Bruns and his team would come up with the concept and the shape, and then they'd hand it off to my friend and say, "Okay, make it strong and make it light." And so he was in charge of arranging the composites, the tolerances, the clearances between things like exhaust and carbon fiber were at the absolute limit. And that car, I'm going to put up a picture of Richie Hearn's Indy car. I used to own the thing, and when it was here in St. Louis, my friend came and he was overseeing it and brought me into the to the paddock area at the St. Louis race for the Indy cars, and you just couldn't help but notice how much smaller Michael Andretti's IndyCar was than everybody else. And it's fascinating that he could make everything so compact and yet so easy to work on. I just didn't find that this thing was a challenge. I haven't found the unreachable bolt. I haven't found something that I said, all right, I guess I better heat up a wrench and bend it to a certain angle in order to get to this bolt. Maybe that's coming. I don't know. But so far, I find this to be a very, very serviceable car. And it's all due to Bruns and his genius. This is YouTube, and I'm sure there's going to be people who disagree with what I'm saying, and please do bring it on. Tell us what you think. But at the end of the day, it is a marvelous piece of engineering that met all of the standards. His design goals of making things compact worked. I don't know if one of them was to make it serviceable, but I found the thing is pretty darn easy to tear down. And so the teardown continues. Uh, every time I take a piece off, I'm taping the bolts into place and wrapping it up in brown paper and putting it down in the basement and getting it ready for restoration. So stick with us. Part 4 is coming up, and more disassembly. Thanks for watching.